Welcome to the Butt Fixer Podcast, brought to you by Shane Gentry and John Van Olden. Sit back, listen up, and listen good. You're going to hear it all right because we've already done it all wrong. We're going to help you meet your goals and fix your butts. Welcome to the Butt Fixer Podcast.
Right here.
ED
So.
equals PE. And I just hope PE. What is PE in your body? Is it penis envy?
Yeah, I think that's
really?
shorthand for premature ejaculation.
Oh,
Premature
shit.
ejaculation.
Because I was like, dude, if you've got ED, you definitely have PE if PE is penis envy. So
you get to be at any age, you have EE also, right? Ejaculation envy, man.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen,
all right. Yep.
Yeah, we got Rob Kancler here with us today with a subject that both sides of the fence are going to have to deal with or do deal with on at any point in your life, especially getting older as a man. So we're going to let you just kind of take us down the path of how you got into sexual health.
Yeah, cool, guys. Well, I'm happy to be here. John and Shane, good to meet you guys. Good to meet
Yeah,
you.
good to meet you.
And just as I get oriented here, it seems like the premise or theme of your show is in a way like anti-excuses, right? Is that
Yes.
am I getting the gist of it?
Yeah, like I want to have more sex, but I can't get it up.
Right.
So you got to fix your butt.
Yeah.
I guess that leads into it. But yeah, it's about don't let anything hold you back. Don't let your doubts, your fears, other people, any of that tell you that you can't do it. And a lot of most of our guests, they kind of tell us, like I was saying, how did you get here? Like what are you doing, and how did you decide this is going to be the path you're going to take? You wouldn't be here if you weren't successful. That's how Shane found you. So let's hear it, man.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that I definitely come from being really good at making excuses. I think that a lot of us are we've had to overcome a lot of the resistance of just being stifled by our own minds to be able to get what we want out of life. And I think this is across the board from my experience with business and sex and relationships and sports and physical training, whatever, that the path being filled with resistance is often in no way an indication that it's not your path to take. So it's certainly been true for me. Well, cool. Yeah. So, go ahead, Shane. You want to say something?
No, go ahead. No, I was going to say, go ahead and let's dive into it, man. Let's start at the beginning. Cool, we'll end it here and we'll get everything in the middle.
There's so many directions we can go. So you guys are going to need to help me out to figure out how we want to use our time here. Immediately what comes to mind is that one of the big excuses that I hear from men, just to use the term excuses, the but is I would love to have a better sex life, but my wife, blah, 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 that there's so much in so some of the folks that I've learned a lot from, they talk about out theiring, where it's basically just like a way of entering into kind of like a victim consciousness, where it's like, I would have this life that I really want, but it's your fault. And this seems to be the case in so many different areas of life. Areas.
That's pretty profound. I like that. What got you into the sexual health? Did you have some experiences on your own that kind of drove you into that path, or did you? Is it just something that you like? Where? Because it's very unique. So I'm interested in how you found that. Like, how did you? And then pursue it into a profession.
Well, this is probably one of the most normal things about myself that I could say is I like the subject. I like sex. I discovered pretty early on in my life that I like that. I like that experience of being intimate with somebody and having sex with a woman was one of the most enjoyable as well as anxiety inducing and mysterious experiences of my young life, where it was like, wow, this is super compelling and interesting. And most of the conversation that I see about this subject is kind of weird, but I'm hooked. I'm like, what is this? And part of my journey, I could say, is coming from this sense of almost like not really buying the story that I was fed about sex. And when I was younger, I didn't have like a concrete awareness of this. Like it was more so just like, I don't think anybody really knows what sex is. And that's like a bold thing to say, but what I, from spending 15 plus years investigating this topic and some pretty unusual environments that I can get into in a bit here, it seems like one way that I could frame the situation is that what we know about sex isn't necessarily about human nature or what we would most enjoy. It's about culture, so doing something that I could call like sex education or whatever, some people almost in a dismissive way have responded with like, oh dude, I didn't know there was something you need to be educated about, like what's wrong with you, like this sort of premise, like that your hard case.
Are you talking about people say that to you, or people would say that to people that come to you for help or advice?
So for example, just to make it real and less abstract, I've had many conversations just like about town at the gym I go to with random men in the locker room, for example, where someone will be like, oh man, what do you do? What's your job? And I'll tell them, and sometimes people will be like, oh, like who are your clients? Who needs to learn about sex? Like, do you have a problem with that? Are you just dealing with people that are having like big issues? And my response to it is often, well, actually, you were educated about sex, and the sources of that education probably didn't know very much about human potential in this particular domain experience.
All right. So, what does it, when you say, so what is your first thing? Because like, okay, man, what do you do for a living? What's your, what do you tell people?
If I want to be PC, I'll just say I run an online school.
Okay.
Short answer. I'll say I run a men's sex education program. That's one other response that I have said.
Okay.
I'll also use more flowery language and say I run a sexual potency incubator, which is an opportunity for men to really develop their sexual power in an environment that's like not weird, or everything's weird. We do a lot of weird stuff in the program, but in a situation that's in no way sexual in nature. Like it's a bunch of straight men on a Zoom call for the most part talking about this subject and doing things interpersonally that relate to presence and attunement and communication and being in their bodies, and basically creating the building blocks in isolated, relatively safe environments so that our capacity for these certain kinds of deep experiences is online.
That's a lot to fit on a business card, man.
It sure is. Yeah,
under your name. Yeah.
So
like mine's a dog trainer.
Program is an easier pitch, right?
Say again. The what?
I run an online school is an easier answer.
All right. Online educator. Like what subject? Okay. And then it goes from there. And is it, sorry, Shane, do you always do it online? Is it, do you have people that you see in person, or do you do like workshop, seminar, or anything like that? Or do you?
I do. Yeah. I find that the in-person vibe, specifically when we're focusing on the subject of sex, works much better when it's paired with a group of women. So the plan starting up in 2025 and beyond, we'll have a bunch of retreats both in the US and in Europe. Well, there will be a women's group that's facilitated by a female team. And then I will be leading the men's group, and we'll have a little bit of overlap at the beginning. And as the week unfolds, we'll gradually kind of merge into a co-ed space where there'll be an opportunity to practice these composite skills, which really lend towards having this kind of extraordinary access to things that I truly had no idea were a thing when I started on this journey, that I have personally experienced stuff that has been completely off the map of what I knew was possible before. And I've met people that have shown me some stuff that was really like, I can't believe that's a thing. Like
that's what I want to hear. And I have one more question. How old are you, man? How old are you?
So I'm 35 years old. So this conversation, 35. Guys, especially as we get to know each other, it will take a million directions until we kind of see where.
So 35. That is, and how did? I'm still trying to get my head.
Yeah.
Okay, so before you did this, like, what did you do? what, like before you decided, okay, I'm heading down this path. Which shit, man, I'm 59. When I was 35, I mean, I was doing this, but I was doing all kinds of other shit too. So,
you guys, you have a background in dog training, right?
Yeah, we're dog trainers. That's like the business, what it says on the business card. Sometimes I call myself a self-employed common sense merchant. That's one of my favorites.
So, air salesman.
Yeah, I sell air. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't do that. Do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, my girlfriend is one of the biggest dog people that I've ever come across in my life. So she's so in the canine frequency. Every time we're around dogs, immediately more in sync with them than their owners.
Does she work with them, or does she have like other like professionally, or just she's like a hobbyist and like a dog lover?
She really does have that like sixth sense and obsession for the canines, for sure. It's amazing.
All right,
it's amazing.
That's cool. She might be a good trainer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she's got an knack for it, for sure. So
but you got to be good with people. Yeah.
She is, yeah. She works as a Pilates teacher, like a very high level Pilates instruction. But anyways, to bring it back to the origin story, to kind of give you guys some points of orientation here. So, let's see. There's so many things that I can say. I got into this subject, I think, just being an insecure teenager and wanting belonging, and having this idea of like, oh, if I got really good at sex, then people would like me, that like girls would like me. I would have access into social circles. If I, I was kind of bullied a lot and felt really socially ostracized. But I also always had this kind of like deep ability to connect with people emotionally, especially with women. I was, grew up as a mama's boy, was super socially anxious. And for whatever reason, I just started to get super obsessed with this subject. And part of it, I think, is just like personality and aptitude, but a lot of it is just like a tremendous amount of obsessive exploration of this subject and taking very, very seriously the opportunities for exploring sex and physical intimacy with a woman. And then I got into psychedelics when I was in my early 20s. Took a lot of acid, did a lot of yoga, got into meditation, had a lot of sex on acid, and just kept opening into like, okay, this experience of embodiment and of consciousness is fucking huge. And in a really big way off the map from what I had been kind of socialized into kind of thinking is being a person and like what my life is about, that it was really like, whoa, this is a really vast and frankly, to just use the only term that lands, this is a very spiritual experience. And I spent at least 10 years kind of wandering around in the wilderness, metaphorically and literally, feeling kind of lost as a person. Like I didn't feel like a sense of affinity towards groups of people or a particular career path or like sense of what my life was supposed to be. And then I got really interested in trauma healing and nervous system awareness and like somatic practice. So like body experiences that are really about internal experience, to put it simply. I had some engagements with different spiritual teachers of several different traditions. I have a traditional Indian yoga teacher, tantra teacher, Ayurvedic practitioner who helped me to, unlock a lot of doors and see things through a particular lens of this very, very old and intricate tradition of Hinduism. And I've also had some other teachers that basically I could say are energy workers who have been working with sexual energy as a way to establish greater equilibrium in the body, and have done some deep work and with folks who just have crazy amount of hours investigating things from their own kind of pioneering research. One of these men is he's in his 80s now. He spent decades and decades and decades just following his own interest and trying to figure out like what is happening in this kind of interaction between the energy of two different systems, and how can it create orgasmicness in a female's energetic and physical body. And he showed me some stuff that was really important, and difficult to reconcile and super confronting, just helping me realize how little I really knew. So
did you go as far with your yoga practice and everything? Did you go to India? Do you have a I have a friend who was in the Pennsylvania state legislature, and I know him through doing business, but he has a guru in India. He told me the story of going to India to see this guy. It's like a wild story. So I'm curious if when you were talking about that, if you have any teachers over there, or is it all so far in this side of the world?
Yeah. So one of the biggest influences for me in that particular domain, which, really for me, that's like 1/10 of the influences that have kind of led me to where I am. But she is an Indian woman. I met her through such an unusual set of circumstances. So I saw a flyer on some random webpage for a yoga teacher training that had happened a year ago. And then I kept seeing this woman's face, like in my mind's eye and even in dreams. So I found that website again, and I wrote an email and was like, hey, I know this already happened. This might sound really weird, but like, I'm so like hooked. I want to know who this person is and how I can learn from her. And she wrote me back, just being like, congratulations, you found me. It's rare that this happens that way. And that was maybe like 12 years ago, something like that. And that woman is a extremely unusual and very, very, very powerful and controversial woman.
Wow.
And I spent quite a bit of time with her in Indonesia, some time with her in Norway and France. And she's the real deal. Very powerful. And
cool.
Intense.
Where are you from? Where are you at right now?
I'm from South Florida. I currently live on Long Island, just outside of New York City, here in Oyster Bay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Got it. Okay. Go for it.
We're all
on the East Coast, by the way. But
I'm
in Delaware right now.
I'm curious about your group that you have that you're planning for next year. Is that when you bring the female, like, I don't know, the majority of your clients, are they coming to you as couples? Are they coming to you as singles that are struggling in their sexual health? I mean, like, what's your typical client like?
So there's a range. Sometimes it's people who their lives are really awesome and they're just like, this isn't it. Like this isn't it. So there's some people who are really successful in various domains of their life. They got a great marriage. They love their spouse. They have sex way more than the other people in their lives. They're doing well in business, blah, blah, blah. And then they're just like, this isn't it. Like, I don't feel okay with this being the kind of sex that I'm having for the rest of my life. Even if like on paper, it checks all the boxes, there's something in me that's just like, there's more for me. Yeah. So that's one group of people. Some of the folks that come have a specific thing, whether it's ejaculation issues, erection issues. They want to understand more about female pleasure. They want to just have deeper intimacy with their wife, with their lover, with their girlfriend. Some people are like, a hard case, like somebody who's just like, my life is fucked. And I just like feel like sexuality is something where I do feel some sense of aliveness and energy and inspiration, but I'm really just like isolated and I don't know how to connect with people. I'm not dating. I feel very alone. Maybe I'm addicted to porn, something like that. So that's certainly a let's say one kind of category of man who comes into our space is someone who's just like, I'm not doing well. And it feels like sex has enough energy where it can maybe like inspire me to create some change in many areas, but like, let this be the head of the spear in a way.
Right. Now, how does somebody, so if somebody was, okay, let me back up. Are more of your clients male or female?
At this point, male. There was at least, let's say 5-year-ish period of time that wrapped up maybe 3-4 years ago where almost all of my clientele were female. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of consciously, but also just by accident, made a shift to working solely with men. It felt like it was really wise for my own maturity to just like not do that. And even in a way, like if my agenda, my mission, or whatever we want to call it, is to help women sexually, it's way more scalable to teach dudes how to make love to them than it is to try to deal with these women on my own. So
that makes that makes a lot of sense, man.
Yeah. So if there's a guy looking, like if somebody out there, is searching for some assistance in this department.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to ask the question right. Where does it split where they would go to their doctor and say, "Hey doc, I'm having, I'm 50, I'm blah, blah, blah. Everything's great, but I'm having some physical issues with getting it up or keeping it up." And like, how do they go? Is it somebody that would go to their doctor first and not see the results they want and then search out somebody like you? Or like, how does somebody find you?
Yeah.
What's the criteria?
I will tell you right now, Shane, about going to the doctor, because it equates to dog training. I need to train my dog. My relationship with my dog is fucked up. My dog's got all kinds of issues, this, that, and the other. And if your dog has issues, I'm telling you who has the issues. It's you have the issue, man. Yeah. It's a damn dog. And so people go to their veterinarian, and the veterinarians are trained to say, give them drugs, drug your dog, give your dog Prozac, give your dog whatever. And all you're doing right there is you're masking the problem, and you are not fixing any part of the problem. And you don't have to work on your relationship. So I will answer that question, Shane, is I would say that if you had a problem in that department and you went to a doctor, you might fix the symptom, but you're not going to fix the fucking problem, man.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Can I have a job, Rob? I'm going to sell your shit.
Yeah, you're doing well. Go teach the next program with me, John. Cool.
I want a card that says assistant, 500 word. I'm just
right.
In business cards, a sheet of paper. Here you go.
Here you go. Yeah.
So
how do they find you?
Yeah. So this is a really unusual situation. So I've been working for myself since 2014. Mm-hmm. So I've been entirely just making money through doing mostly one-on-one coaching, I could call it.
All right.
Some of it kind of going into explicitly trauma healing related stuff. So I do have a background in trauma healing and many different coaching modalities, and just spent a lot of time exploring presence with people, like truly exploring really being in presence and using the kind of relational presence as a way to help people be more present to what's really going on and to understand themselves better and to develop more awareness of how their nervous system works so that they can take more responsibility for what they're experiencing and basically kind of maybe outgrow feeling like they're just getting yanked around by their own nervous system and experiencing like anxiety, depression, obsessive thinking, victim mentality, like blaming other people, blaming politicians, blaming the world for all their problems, and to come back to really orienting around the how of consciousness, to be like, what is going on? Like, what is actually happening in my experience, and how can I take more responsibility for creating what I would like and being involved in my life in a way that I actually enjoy, rather than feeling like I'm just on the ride. So I spent a lot of time working with people one-on-one and in part under the supervision of a mentor for many years, so that I could really follow my own draw, like my own intuitive curiosity about being with people, with somebody who had a tremendous amount of experience and training, to make sure that I wasn't doing anything that was unethical or potentially harmful or dangerous sessions with people. So I did this one-on-one work for a long time, and then I started teaching groups of people about this kind of body of work that I had been developing, partially just kind of like as an oral tradition and in writings with the support of a couple people. So your original question was, how do people find me? A lot of it has just been referrals and word of mouth. That when
yeah. So, I mean, like if you Google, I'm having these issues, like I'm sure you're gonna just open up the floodgates to your inbox being spammed to death. Like, how would that?
Yeah, Shane. So I can just
I'm getting ED. I'm getting ED ads in Facebook right now just from talking to this guy, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think just simply by being a man, you're going to be targeted for drugs related to your, just because they know that they can get you for it, and it plays into this bigger. I don't want to go into like conspiracy theory stuff, but it seems pretty conclusive that there's a bunch of kind of perverse interests that are trying to get people to use drugs when they don't need to, and that when there's actually
let's Shane and I've deleted a podcast in the past of me going on a massive rant. Shane, I mean, I don't know if it's Shane's mom is battling. I mean, can I say, Shane, is that cool?
Yeah, I mean,
Shane's mom's going through like stage 4 cancer right now, and he was telling me some of the things that they're doing and having her do and everything else and take. And I just lost my marbles and said, I think it would be best that we don't publish this one because it's very, very frustrating. We deal with it. We deal with it in the dog world, in the veterinary world. It's the same thing. And the dogs can't even tell you, hey man, just have a talk. Just talk to me in a way that I can understand, and you don't have to drug me, man. Right?
Yeah. So what is so if somebody comes to you with a erectile dysfunction issue, like
Shane, let me before we add more to this.
Continue.
The original question.
Yeah, my brain's running 1,000 miles an hour.
It's all good. There's
but I've missed my chance on 10 awesome innuendos and
cool
and puns, man. Like, talking about someone comes to you and they say they have a hard life. That's like one of them. But anyway, go for it, man. So
all right,
I'm sorry.
So Shane's question was, if somebody goes to their doctor and they're like, hey, I'm having these kinds of issues, what should I do? That the doctors are trained to orient around pharmaceutical, chemical-based prescription solutions. That's my understanding. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an anthropologist in this way. It seems like the medical system is oriented around people go to healthcare practitioners because they have an issue that they want to change. And then, 9 times out of 10 or more, they're oriented towards certain diagnoses and prescriptions that relate to the pharmaceutical industry directly. Seems like there's very crooked and perverse incentives around that, from the insurance to the medical education to the lobbying in our governments, how it's all being subsidized. Like that whole thing is a shit show. So for me,
there's more money in management than cure. That's for sure.
Well, maybe there is, at least because of the system that we're in, not action. Like, I don't think that necessarily it's a negative economic move to focus on holistic healthcare and looking after people rather than these really kind of perverse incentives. But anyways, if somebody were to ask me like, hey, I'm having this issue and I don't know what to do, almost never would I tell somebody that they should take some drugs that will make their dick hard because of altering their neurochemistry and their blood chemistry. I almost never would suggest that. So specifically with this topic of erectile dysfunction, it's something that a lot of men have issue with, and younger and younger and younger. I read a study recently where something like it was like 20 or 40% of men under the age of 25 claim that they have erectile issues already.
I'm noticing that on the commercials that come on TV is these are like targeting like guys your age.
Jesus fucking Christ, dude. When I was 25, my shit was as hard as woodpecker lips.
Exactly. Shane, it's an
who the fuck has a problem at 25?
Your blood, all that, dude. Yeah.
Oh my God. At 25? People are having problems like that now?
Yeah.
They think they have problems like that.
There's so many issues where it's like the food that we're eating is worse. Our like the bioavailability of the food because of the way that our bodies are is lower. Right. People are experiencing chronic inflammation, all kinds of like metabolic issues. There's hormone issues. Testosterone is lower. Estrogen is higher. There's microplastics everywhere that are fucking with people's
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like the whole landscape is so fucking complicated to like start to look at like, why is this happening and why is it trending kind of on the up and up. But what I do is,
no pun intended.
yes, right. If it were on the up and up, we'd be in a different
we're on the, we hope it's up.
Yes.
So leaning into that though, that seems like, if I'm understanding you correctly, that it's not like if somebody comes to you with that problem and it's not like do this thing, do that thing. It's like, so you're going down the rabbit hole. You're going, what are you eating? What's your lifestyle like? Are you active? Are you getting sunlight? Are you, those things can also be part of the solve.
Yes. So there's that. I'm in the process of creating a library, basically, and a lot of it has been oral. I've been working with people for a long time, and this is just like, this is what happens when people come to me, and I take what I know and what I don't know, and I seek to really support people in finding real solutions, like things that are not based on this like weird moment in culture, but are like based in nature and are fucking reliable, sound solutions. So within this library of stuff, there's like a little bit that's just like, here's how to take care of yourself. Just like very basic. Like, here's a bunch of shit that you probably want to be aware of that relates to the society that you're inside of, and these kind of incentives and all this kind of stuff. But that is not at all where we stop. That's really just like foundationally, so that we have kind of shared vocabulary, shared language, shared premise. That's just, okay, that's the writing on the wall, that's on the table here. And there's so many different things that seem to relate to why people are having erection issues. And in some cases, people's bodies actually are, we could say like damaged, or like in a state where some sort of intervention may be required for their dick to work properly. And I would, in almost all cases, so from what I've seen so far, I've never had a client, never had a student that has not been able to change this via the things that I can tell you about right now. Really? There is something that is medical intervention that my understanding is it's basically the same tech that they use to blast kidney stones. You know how they use sound? You know how they use sound? Like if somebody has like a big kidney stone, you go to the doctor and they use like some sort of sound thing to break it up into little gritty sand so that you can just pee it out or whatever. So they use that same technology to basically reinvigorate the nerves and blood vessels in your dick, so that if you are at a state where your body is actually so jacked up that your penis actually just, the nerves and the blood vessels in your penis don't work properly, that there is some medical intervention using sound that is required. And beyond that, I think everything beyond that can be addressed. And I don't want to say anything. So like, I'm not a doctor. I have
we understand
a limited selection of the people that I've worked with, but like at this point it's a couple hundred, and I've never had anybody follow the protocols that I suggest on this issue and come back to me and be like, it didn't work, I'm still having the same problems. So there's several things. Like, one of the issues is that people are having sex too fast, that we're in this kind of overstimulating our bodies. People say hypernormal stimulus is kind of the foundation of our modern life. And I think that that's a very accurate and fun way to say, like, we are being bombarded with sensory information that's so fucking overstimulating for these soft biological systems. And I think this further gets exacerbated with pornography. On several levels. Like, one, hypernormal stimulus that you're looking at, like a normal person would never see like so many people fucking all the time. Like, that's
I have a 13-year-old daughter, man. I just shudder to think what she's seeing on the internet, man.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And
I've got 4 boys. I know what they're seeing.
Another thing to freak you out: what are the boys seeing that are going to be her first lovers in life?
Exactly. Like, it does freak me out. It does freak me out. Trust me.
Yeah. It's wild. So like, there's so many different angles that this can go. But just to kind of bring it back to the thing, I think men are so used to overstimulating their dick because we spend the first, and this is, more true with my generation and so fucking true for younger generation, less so for you guys, that the first 500 sexual experience that they had is like, they're sitting like this, just really aggressively stimulating their penis in a way that is so not the way that our bodies work best with when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to orgasm, when it comes to connection and presence with another person, that we're so habituated towards overstimulating ourselves and not really listening to our body intelligence.
It's a good point, actually.
Yeah. So like when this comes to being with a woman, you're fucked, no pun intended. You're not going to be able to actually meet her emotional and sexual needs because you're overstimulated, you're going too fast, you don't know how to be present and attuned when you are in a sexual environment because you spent so much time training yourself to do something else. It's just, we get habituated.
Right. And as men, we're forced to do it quick and silently.
Exactly.
Wow.
Like, we got it's like you got to hide it.
I got to hide it. You got to hide it. Yeah, you got to go quick.
Like,
you got to hide it. Yeah.
Yeah, he can't make any noise so you don't get caught. And even though every fucking body on the fucking planet does it, some reason or another, there's the shame of getting busted,
100%. 100%. Yeah. So to keep going with this thread here. So I think part of what is going on is that there's this kind of legacy of, to use a strong word that I think is fair, abuse against our genitals, against our sexuality. There's this sense of like, we're not really looking after the awakening of our sexual system. Like we are really beating, no pun intended, we're beating the hell out of our sexual system.
Trust me, my mind, you caught it at the same time I did.
Yeah, there we go, John. We're on the same wavelength here.
That's hilarious, man.
So yeah,
it is. That's a good point.
So I'll weave this back in to kind of at least complete one loop here, so we're not just opening up loops. So we're not concluding here. What I have seen is that when men really take the practice seriously of listening to their bodies and going slow and being able to say no, or like whatever, just being in a relationship with looking after themselves, so that they're like, this goes back to like deep shit about developmental trauma, where trauma is really often about like too much, too fast, and I'm alone. Too much. This is too much, and I'm by myself. There's nobody here to help me deal with this, and this is too much. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the situation that most people live their entire lives in, is that shit is really intense, I'm overwhelmed, and I'm completely alone. And I think that this kind of legacy is like deep, deep, deep in the bedrock of modern Western society, where we are raised in an environment where we are actually traumatized via neglect in most cases. It's not even that there's like episodic trauma where there's like overt abuse. That certainly fucking happens plenty. But the more pervasive thing is that there's this kind of subtle or not so subtle developmental neglect that impacts the way that our nervous systems form and the way that we develop personality and persona, and it really impacts everything. So to weave that all the way through, what we're talking about here is like we're really so used to not being in relationship with the pacing that we actually need to be super present and open and to feel safe and be connected to other people. We're used to kind of overstimulating our dick in that legacy. And in addition, because of porn, there's so much shame, there's so much insecurity. So to really like find what is it to be in like physiological safety, physiological calm, while I'm running a lot of sexual energy and being in connection with a partner, is something that people have never, ever experienced in their lives. That I would go as far as to say that I think most people have never had that experience ever, not even a single time. Is like,
go ahead. How old are your average? Like how when you work with men, how old is the average man? Is there an average? Well, there is an average, but what? I'm sure there's a range.
I would say that most guys are between 35 and 50. We've had guys as young as 25 and as old as 70, 72 in the programs. Okay. And just to be clear, I have some mentors that are in their 70s and 80s that are like, I am still having the best sex of my life all the time.
Wow. Sign me up. Sign me up. I'm getting there. Yeah. But that makes sense. I mean, so 30 and you said 30 and 50?
Yeah, 30, 35 to 50, I would say is the average.
Those are also your peers. I mean, you can relate to, so I get you. All right, cool. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah. I just wanted to put that in.
There's so many different
I wanted to put it in context. That's all. So.
Totally. Yeah. So we can keep jamming on this. So I do think that one of the biggest issues, and this is like more of like a, transformational kind of piece than it is like a thing that you can do right now that'll change your dick like that. This is more like when men really learn how to relax and be present in their body and breathe deeply all the way down into their balls and really be willing to like be in this exploration of what really feels good and how can I deeply enjoy my woman and do something that really suits me in this exploration that we call sex, that as a context is a completely different environment for sexual exploration. And I think not doing that over time results in people having all kinds of issues like erectile dysfunction, for one. So as a premise, so a big part of what we do in the work is to help people create a different context for having sex that is not this thing that's very informed by the porn that we watch, the way that we jerk off when we're watching porn, religious indoctrination, this overstimulation, fast-paced society that we all live in, this, sensation-seeking kind of hedonism, dopamine, thing that people live their entire lives in, that's the same thing that they do when they have sex. Like that's how they have sex. The way that they do all that is the way that they make love. And of course, it would not translate to deep and meaningful sexual experiences. And in a way, it's like if you take that mindset and you try to figure out how to optimize for that context, you get porn, like overt kind of pornographic stuff, and you also get a lot of like kinky shit where people, as one of my mentors says, it's like you gotta have sex with 6 people in the butt while hanging from a chandelier to just like keep the novelty pumping happening. Like how can
yeah. I mean, I guess that's like people that do drugs, right? And you're just like, okay, yeah, I used to be fine, like just doing this, and now I'm shooting that, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Looking for chasing the dragon. Chasing the dragon, man.
Yeah. So a lot of people have the solution of like, I need to have an affair. I need to have a new, fresh, young thing. Maybe I should leave my wife and find a 25-year-old Russian girl to marry or whatever, like that. I think that this is all like there's psychological and behavioral and physiological symptoms that relate to these contexts of consciousness and embodiment and ways of being that I think people can really take for granted and just assume that's what it is to be a person, but it's completely fucking not. It is what it is to be a part of this fucked up culture. And I think that it's really helpful.
Hey man, that makes that's making a lot of sense.
Yeah. So
now I know. Now I have context every time I watch these 30-year-old looking women pushing the new Viagra that comes on TV called. I mean, it's just like a throat lozenge or something, but they're not targeting guys my age or older. They're targeting guys their age, man. And these girls are in their 20s and 30s, man.
Yeah, because I bet the drug dealer for those pills is your doctor at your age. And for us, it's those hot girls on Instagram.
Well, you don't need a doctor anymore. You just go to
exactly.
You go online.
Do it online.
No medical consultation.
What a deal. Yeah.
So to be like a devil's advocate and in business, Shane, can you hear me? Yeah. So to be like a devil's advocate and to be like kind of tie it back to, because I mean, there's an entrepreneurial part of this whole thing. I mean, you got to make a living. We all do. I want to make a living. I also want to make a living helping people overcome problems. And it sounds stupid or not, but when people have a dog, it's a big fucking problem in their house, man. A lot of stress. Yeah. We go to veterinarians. We try to get veterinarians to refer us for dog training. Some do, most do. Sometimes they do it with medication, whatever. Is that like, would you go to a urologist and say, here's my card, man? I mean, or are they just like, get the fuck out of here?
Hell no. They don't recommend exercise and diet. Like, why would they recommend something as strange as what I do?
And you think they don't recommend that because they're not getting paid for it?
No, I think because they're not educated. I don't think that these doctors are bad people. I think that, factually, I think 90% of med schools in the United States include zero education about nutrition. Zero.
Yeah. Well,
literally zero.
There's no education at vet school about behavior, or maybe one. Yeah. And it's the number one killer of dogs is behavior problems. Because
I mean, there's just
so hard. You're not going to kill yourself. Some people will, but if your dog is fucking your life up, people kill them.
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're asking is like marketing. Like how do I get clients or whatever. So
I'm not asking how you do it. I'm thinking like, wow, could you do it? Would that be a way to get it out there? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's a couple other angles that I think are maybe more, at least top of mind for me. I like your idea. It's something that I haven't considered so much. I think it would certainly take personal relationships with these healthcare
It does,
providers.
for sure. Right, Shane?
So I'm in the process of writing several different books and making several different video courses that are kind of like specifically about the outcomes and issues that people are looking at here. So there's issues with like the ad networks that we have to consider, like running ads on Facebook and Instagram for what I do is something that takes a little bit of creativity and awareness of what passes and what. So that's one big thing. Being on podcasts like this is a way that people get exposed to it. And, you know, it's funny because, you know, maybe this is like a bit distorted, but from my perspective, the idea is like, is there anybody that this does not apply to? Probably not many. Like, I think guys like sex, they like pussy. No big surprise there. It seems like this is something that men, when they think about like, okay, I want to have a dream life. I want everything that I want to be as good as it can be. I want to have sex often. I want it to be good quality. I want it to be really beautiful and meaningful for me and the woman I'm making love to. I don't think that there's a whole lot of guys that don't feel that way, that don't envision their life being like a lot of great sex. If they were to just make up their dream reality, it would probably include a lot of great sex. And the reality is that almost nobody is having a lot of great sex. That I saw a study recently that said something like 50% of American adults have not had sex in the past 12 months at all.
What?
At all. 50% of American adults have not had sex in the past year. Crazy.
That's a long time.
It's a long time. That's a lot of people. And so, you know, so there's so many different things here. Like one of them is that like considering how big of an issue this is when it comes to like quality of life and meaningful experiences and just, you know, on your deathbed being like, that was good. I did the best job I could. That considering how big of an issue sex is, it's weird to me. It seems like incoherent in a way that there isn't more of an emphasis on like, how do we fix this? You know, and same with health. Like, of course, if you don't have health, you don't have a life. And there's not an emphasis on real holistic health. So, you know, we're in a strange time, whatever, weird time to be alive. We know that. So this thing of like, another question that I've thought of that I think is a really compelling marketing hook, but is also just, you know, a compelling question is, how much does sexual incompetence cost an average man in his lifetime? Like, how much does that cost you?
The average man, and how much does it cost? It could be a lot of things.
So sexual incompetence, that means that they're going to spend money on porn, prostitution, some other. I mean, I would imagine there's got to be.
I can tell you, and you can tell me, Shane, that fucking up a relationship will fucking cost you a lot of fucking money. Man.
So it's emotional and financial cost.
The cost of separating your kids, the cost of feeling like you need to compensate all the time because there's something wrong with you and nobody can find out, so you got to look a certain way. Like, I think that stuff is so deeply related to sex, so deeply, that when men walk around with that sense of knowing their own goodness and their own innocence and their ability to deeply satisfy a woman, that's a different man.
Yeah.
That's a different.
Probably walk around with a little bit of extra swagger, you know?
Yeah. When that man walks into a room, people know.
Strutting.
You know, when that guy walks into a room, it's like, who's that guy? Stud.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah. Yeah, so how much time, money do people try to have a fake way of getting to that result, of having that pep in their step and having respect from other men? It's their whole fucking life for a lot of people. Yeah. Their whole life is oriented around, how do I appear that I have higher status? Literally their whole life.
I know we're only scratching the surface of this subject. We could probably go on for weeks, but I'm kind of curious. Yeah. Oh, you'd be a great happy hour guest. So I have, when you're dealing with a couple, okay, you know, you got to deal with the dude, you got to deal with the lady. How do the way you approach this, would this work for, it's like, say, a gay couple? If you're dealing with two men, where what you do now, you've got some way that you may handle the females and the males. How do you put that together when you got two guys?
Great question.
Is it any different?
You're asking a couple questions here. So
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's a compelling topic, right? It's like, how often do we have, this is another thing too, is like, these kinds of conversations are pretty damn unusual. That most men only experience conversations about sex that are either this kind of like weird sexism or like bravado, like, oh, I'm the shit, kind of like, just like having like sensible, honest conversations amongst men about this topic is really unusual.
Yeah.
Especially when we get more into the like nitty gritty of like personally, what are we each experiencing? It's very uncommon. Very, very. So that's one thing. Another thing that I can bring in is in working with couples, one thing that I want to clarify from the beginning is, do both people want to be here? Because if they
That's
don't...
my next question.
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't do that. You know,
I can't imagine.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, so you can't just like, if the dude comes to you and goes, man, but the wife is like, yeah, you know, she's old school. She's like, you're full of shit. Just do the thing. You know, I got to wash dishes later or something.
Exactly.
I mean,
I don't have a problem. It's not going to work. You have a problem. That's
so it wouldn't necessarily work if both parties are not on the same page with it.
So when working with couples, I really take time to set the container to make sure that we're on the same page and that the intentions are there. And like, there's something for me around like, I'm like, I have this fucking energetic forensics where I am really, really tracking the subtlety of what is going on in the space. And like, is what they're saying actually coherent and consistent with the energy in the room and in their bodies? And, you know, I've spent a lot of time getting very good at tracking subtlety and being able to tell what's going on. So I really do make sure that we are entering into a container where we have the possibility of doing real work together. So it's like, do these people actually want to...
A pre-consultation, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah. Setting expectations.
Right. For sure. Like, do both people really want this outcome? And are they willing to roll up their sleeves and, look at some...
I just can't imagine anybody in that going, no, I don't want it to be better.
There's a lot of people that are so...
I do. They're in denial. They're ashamed.
There is a lot of denial and shame, but one of the biggest issues is blame.
Yeah,
it's blame. It's like, the reason that we're here is because you need to change. It's not like we're here to take responsibility.
Dude.
You know? It's like people will be like, oh, I don't want to do this men's thing because my wife needs to change. Let's do some couples work. And then it's just projection. It's blame. It's like, I'm a victim, you're the perpetrator, and I'm basically here to get a third party to validate that I'm the victim, you're the perpetrator.
Dude,
shit.
That's crazy. Do you want a side gig? Because you would be perfect in people's living room when they are having conflict about... They're not having conflict about their dick between them. They're having a conflict about their dog. Yeah. And one is blaming the other. And sometimes one of the people know exactly what they need to do with the dog, but the other person won't listen to them. So then we come in and we tell the guy, it's always the guy, right? Yeah. Shane's entire marketing approach is marketing to women because men don't ask for help, right? They don't ask for directions.
Fair enough. I'm just going to plug this. Going off camera for 5 seconds.
So it's always the woman, and it's us that come in and we say, yeah, well, you got to do X, Y, and Z. And the guy will listen to us, A, because he paid us, and 2, because it's a third impartial party.
Yeah.
You know, so that's like, okay, get the impartial one in there and, you know, find out what that opinion is. And yes, when you pay for it, the information has value. That's just how it goes. Yeah.
For sure. When people are bought in. So one thing that
it's amazing. Shane, I got a short for you. Dog training is like ED therapy or something. Fix your dick, fix your dog.
I don't know if that'll ever do well.
Dude, I don't know. We're going after clicks, right? So
yeah.
Well, I think, guys, you probably encounter this a lot too, that the issues that you see that people have with their dogs are clearly just issues that they have in their life and in their marriage and in their household.
Absolutely.
This is a symptom of a greater dysfunction or pattern.
We get it all. I mean, I've been doing it for over 30 years. Shane's been at it for what now? 15 16 years. Yeah. And you get people that say, yeah, you know, I don't want to say anything, but like we talk about like the stuff that you tell us to do with the dog, and we're doing it with the kids. It's like we're consistent. We're this. When we say we're going to do it, we actually do it. We follow through. We, blah, blah, blah. Accountability.
There's a lot of testimonials in our work that are along those lines of being like, my relationship with my kids is better. You know, and people, what do you have? Like, they assume some sort of like weird incestuous thing is happening, and it's like, no, we're talking about responsibility, presence, communication, owning your shit, blaming people, listen. Like, this is foundational. So just to maybe
and when we go in, I'm sure when you go in, if you meet a couple the first time, I mean, you can in your mind be thinking, holy fuck, right? Like, this dynamic is pretty fucking crazy, but you don't like, you can't judge, you can't like take a side, you can't do any of that stuff. I mean, to me, it's super similar, you know? Amazing.
Well, I think I have a little bit more liberty to be direct about what I see is going on in their relationship than you guys.
Because that's why they're calling you. Exactly. We're being direct. We're being direct in a different kind of way, because everything we do is focused around this animal who doesn't have a voice to tell us how they feel. Right. So
it's touching. Cool.
Yeah. So
it's pretty fascinating to make a living at this. This is pretty wild.
Yeah. So just to wrap up something that we've been kind of talking around. So a good amount of what I do, I would say, is more like kind of holistic. And one part of it is like, if you don't know how to have a semi-healthy relationship with a woman, you're probably not going to be having a lot of sex. You know, like, you're probably not. That's just so. One thing that we do is just like make sure that people have at least like a baseline of being able to have a functional relationship with the woman that they're sharing their life with. Pure, like, even if I'm not, if I have no agenda to help people have better marriages and I simply just want people to have better sex, if I don't cover a little bit of that, we're not in business.
That makes sense. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because a lot of people's sex issues don't have anything to do with sex. They have to do with personal issues, health issues, lifestyle issues, relationship issues, and mindset, shit in their head. So like, once all of that is covered, the thing that I really like love to do, and that I love to jam with people when they have enough of a foundation to get into it, is like, okay, we have all of this ground covered. Now let's really get into the stuff that is going to blow your mind. Like, stuff that is completely off the map. And part of the reason why I do these durational programs is because I'm not trying to give power tools to teenagers. I want people to come to that point in the program by being like, okay, we have a foundation. We've already had a very long conversation about personal responsibility, communication, health, looking after yourself, being oriented to the purpose of your life. Like, we're ready, like, deep in having a shared vocabulary and trust with one another about having very deep and meaningful and sometimes confronting experiences together. And then there's, it's really backloaded at the end of the program and certainly sprinkled throughout to, like, keep people really excited about being there. We go into a lot of detail about stuff that people truly had no idea was possible. Like, in the realms of like sexual mysticism and orgasmic possibilities and unleashing their masculine potency and understanding the nature of feminine sexual opening and heart sex integration, and really getting into the physical and energetic anatomy of the female sexual system and our own embodiment and capacity for pleasure, and this stuff that's like really like high level sex education and training. Woven inside of this more holistic, like, how do you get a person to even be available and ready for that sort of upgrade in the first place? So
I imagine, I mean, I don't imagine, I'm sure, like, what you do, somebody comes to you, they go through, you have your sessions and everything, and you must give them, basically, there's homework. Like, you need to, put it into practice. If you don't put it into practice, it doesn't work. How often do you get, like, because we get often, right, Shane? I mean, there are people, they pay us a fucking shitload of money and we tell them this is the problem and they agree that's the problem. When we say these are the things you have to do to fix the problem, and then they don't do the work. They don't want to do the work. The reason they're there is because they never did the work. The reason we're there is to take them out of the comfort zone and make them do the work, and then they don't want to do the work. What would you say, is that similar in your Yeah, the same.
Yeah. I just think, so for me, there's like different levels, right? Like to, kind of illustrate this, is this video going to be included in the podcast? Or there's some people that are only getting audio too?
The video is in, yeah.
Okay, cool. So people that are listening to just audio, you can think of like concentric circles where like on the outside, I have people that I'm just distributing information to basically that are maybe like around the containers that I facilitate, but they're really just kind of like at a distance. They're not really that involved. They're invested in the work, but they're curious enough to show up at least part of the time or to, buy the products or whatever and take in some of the content. And then there are people that really want to do the work and take it more seriously and they're willing to show up, but maybe it's not top priority. Maybe they're busy. Maybe there's some inner blocks around, there's deep stuff. Like some people feel like they're unworthy of this kind of sexual life and subconsciously they don't know why they keep kind of not being able to take seriously the opportunity that's right in front of them. There's a lot of reasons kind of behind the scenes for people doing things. So that's one thing. And then, as the circles get smaller, it's deeper and deeper and deeper into the work for people who are looking for real initiation, who really, really want to use sex and sexuality as a way to experience transcendence and to have a connection with something that is deeply meaningful and outside of the box of what is available in this life, especially in this kind of like post-religious world that, what I experience and what a lot of people that I've worked with experience is something that is divine, let's call it, or something that is transcendent and of a level of beauty and meaningfulness that is like just of a different range. Like something that is so profound. And something that I really love is not just kind of helping people figure out what I know, but helping people to be their own pioneers, helping people to be able to like go into the lab of their own embodiment and consciousness and relationality and continue to experience things that are emergent, that they don't know about, that they're not seeking to have happen, but are really just allowing the emergent experience of how the energies kind of play in this alchemical process that occurs when we go into these deep sexual spaces to be kind of like their own spiritual practice. So the business is oriented around different tiers depending on what people have an appetite for.
Yeah. So you're saying that you at the core, I guess, right? Sort of at the core is the ability to take the things that you teach them and build on that, right? Like learn that they build on
so
that.
In a way it's just tools. Like I could maybe come up with an analogy here where it's like teach a man to fish, but it's also like teach a man how people figured out how to fish is kind of the premise, right? It's like
that's
you
good.
can give a man a fish, you can teach a man to fish, or you can help men realize that a bunch of men figured out how to fish, and like it's just a construct that has a result. And maybe it's not the best, and maybe you want to iterate on that and make fishing different so that you have better results, right? So it's like, some people are pawns, some people are, a rook, some people are the kings and queens, and some people are the chess players. Some people realize that this is a fucking game that somebody made up and I'm playing it, right? Like that. There is available support for all of those different tiers. Like some people is like somebody just has like a normal job and they're like, I want to stop having this issue with my penis and I want to be able to pleasure my wife more. Awesome. We have a solution for that. You're welcome here. And there's some other people who are like, I don't know why, but I'm compelled. I want to know what is inside of this world that you are curating. So,
all right.
So I got a couple of questions on that along those lines, and one is just kind of weird, but I'm curious. So on the particular subject that we're on at the moment, as things get more intense and more focused, like I don't even know. Again, this weird way to ask this question, but
ask the questions.
If an orgasm is already amazing. Like even in a shitty situation, I've never had one and went, well, that sucked. You know what I mean? So in some kind of comparison, as you get more down this path, in what calculation could you say your normal orgasm is here, but I can give you one that's like, what the fuck is here? What is that? Like, I mean, I don't even know how to quantify that. I mean, is there
Well, Rob can't give you one, Shane. He can
well, yeah, I know that.
I mean,
right,
maybe he
right,
could.
yeah.
Maybe he could, but I don't want to, like, let's not go there.
No, I didn't mean you. Like, I didn't mean you and me without at least having dinner first.
Yeah, right. You got to buy me a drink, Shane. We're just
so yeah, I mean, like, so how do you make something that's already incredible?
So we could look at it like this, right? So if you throughout your whole life, the only food that you ever exposed to was carrot cake, you'd be like, wow, carrot cake's fucking good. I like food.
Oh shit, man. Yeah.
Because in your mind you would just be like, oh, I need food to live.
Right.
Having food is a part of my nature as a human. I need that. Every time I need food, I eat carrot cake. You would have no idea that there's another thing besides carrot cake. So if there are other people on the other side of the world that were eating steak and broccoli and felt way better than you every day because they're not eating fucking carrot cake for breakfast.
Right. I hate carrot cake.
Yeah, but like,
couldn't you said chocolate cake?
But I love my carrot.
Exactly. Yeah, whatever. The pens are dripping off the wall.
I know, right? I treat it like it owes me money.
Like we don't know. We literally. So your question is brilliant.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
It's like, carrot cake would be great if you only ever ate carrot cake. You'd be like, wow, I fucking love carrot cake. It's awesome. Yeah. I need it to live. It's a part of nature to eat. So
there's a how do you market to that group, man? People love their carrot cake. I don't have a problem. I get carrot cake every fucking day, and I love that shit. Yeah.
It's such a big issue because it's like, how do you change people's imagination? How do you change people's imagination? Because it's
how do you get people to realize that they should change their imagination?
They have no fucking idea what they're missing. They have no fucking idea. So, like, to give a piece of context here, the first time that I was ever around this person who used to be a mentor of mine, I was fucking sure that woman is an actor. This man is a charlatan. This is a set. This whole thing is bullshit. I don't believe it at all.
Right.
Like, that was literally my first impression after I watched this man wave his hand over a naked woman's body and bring her into orgasm without physically touching her at all. I was like, this is fucking fake. No way. This guy's just trying to get us to pay him money and like see that he's some sort of like spiritual master or whatever. It for sure was not fake. For sure. I've spent a tremendous amount of time with that guy. I was with the women who were having these experiences with him. I have since been tremendously off the map experiences with a really diverse group of women, lots of different women with different backgrounds.
Right.
It's very real. The things that we can experience when it comes to orgasmicness and depth of experience and the kind of emergent mysticism that can come out of sexual experience is really off the map. So one thing that to kind of make this more real, one thing that I have experienced, and then I've gotten the feedback that many, many men in my programs have experienced, is that orgasm, if you think about it, is like their energy builds and builds and builds and builds, and then something tips, and then there's this release, and then there's this kind of spasm, and it lasts a couple seconds and it's over, and then there's this bit of kind of like spacey, relaxed euphoria afterwards. That's like the typical experience that people have, like when men have an orgasm. They're like, okay, there's sensation and pleasure, there's this kind of feeling of energy building in my genitals, and then something tips, there's this kind of spasm, and then this like incredibly pleasurable experience, and then this kind of spacious euphoria afterwards for a little while. So one thing that can happen is if you learn to really slow down and explore something that we could describe as like dilation or conductivity, that the space that the energy is seeking to move through isn't like it builds up and then it kind of bursts through, but it just opens into this kind of flooding. There is this ability for the body to have a capacity for orgasmic conductivity and this sort of dilation that correlates with this different kind of like energetic organization inside of our system that has a totally different kind of function, where it's not like there's this peak spasm and then it's over, but it's almost like there's an opening into this kind of like undulating and sustained experience that is a totally different quality of orgasmicness than this kind of peak thing that we know about. And
so that's the steak versus the carrot cake.
The steak versus the carrot cake, for sure. And I think it's generous to call what most people are experiencing carrot cake, because there's some good fucking carrot cake out there.
We'll call it Brussels sprouts. Fuck Brussels sprouts.
Like, I mean, it's almost like gas station donuts is what most people.
Oh yeah,
there's an old.
It's deep in that direction for sure.
There's an old Eddie Murphy skit from like the '80s where he's talking about, you know, like you got this woman and it's like eating Ritz crackers, or no, it's like eating saltines. And then like, you find this other woman. He's like, holy shit, that wasn't no regular cracker. That must have been a Ritz. So it's like this thing.
So then you wake up
questions. 3 weeks later and I just got plain old crackers. But yeah.
So my other question is, what if? So okay, I guess I don't know. You probably already answered this, but I'm asking it anyway. Like if a couple comes, let's say one of the partners is like really hypersexualized or needs it more often, has a much higher drive than the partner.
Yeah.
Do the things that you do, like, would you handle that where you try to increase the libido of the lesser person or somewhat squish the other? Like, how do you even that out? Like, if they come to you, they're both willing, they're both interested, they're both open.
Yeah.
Where do you start? Do you squish or do you build up? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I even think that we need to rework the premise of the question a little bit before I can answer it.
Totally.
When most people are reporting that they have like really high libido or really low libido, that I wouldn't say that that's like typologically the way that those people are. I think that there's circumstances that are really worth investigating or at least being clear about before we proceed. Like I think a lot of women, I think, are not interested in sex because nobody's fucking them well. It's not because they have low libido. It's because they're just kind of dead. They're just they're
disappointed.
They're resigned. And what gets crazy is like when we look at like energetically and even physiologically, there literally is like deadness in the body. There's fascial adhesions. There's dry and dead nerves. Like the body really is like resigned from being sexual at a certain point for a lot of people. And sometimes this happens really, really young, that in terms of like energetic distribution and circulation, a lot of people are not having an integrated embodied experience of their sex being a part of the way that they walk around. So like that is one thing that I think is important to look at, is like people report having low libido. I don't think that that's like typologically personality based, like reasonable interpretation of reality. I think it's so highly distorted and is just like a symptom of a whole environment of information and habit and history. And some of it is epigenetic. Like this shit is so deep, you know, like some people just, they get a body and they inherited a bunch of information of like weird sexual stuff or abuse or perversion or shame or, you know, a lot of like bound up stuff, or you know, it's not always bound up. There are many, many expressions of how the body can be carrying some kind of incompletion or backlog or whatever. So like one thing that I think is worth looking at is just like, let's just not assume that we really know how these people are, because just personally, like as a practitioner and researcher, I've had countless experiences where women think that they're a certain way and it turns out they're completely not that way. They just have never been met. They've never been met deeply. They've never been opened in a way. They've never had somebody accompany their sexual opening, or in a bigger picture, their sexual awakening, and they haven't, you know, had support or even awareness to look into that in their own journey. So they're shut down, they're dead inside, you know, their pussy isn't working properly, even on the level of physiology. Like, and this is like, you know, and like women's pelvic and reproductive health care and sexual health stuff is a fucking ghetto, as my friend likes to say. So like they're not having a cakewalk either. Like there isn't a sense of like, where there's two healthy people coming together. One of them has low libido, one of them has high libido. How do we bridge that? Like that's, I think that's probably almost never what's going on.
Gotcha. So it makes sense.
You know, that's one thing that I think.
And plus, they got to feel good about themselves.
I mean, you got to that's heavy because.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, guys. We're dealing with a little bit of a lag naturally, but we'll figure it.
No, I don't think so. I think we're good. Are we?
Yeah. Well,
there are moments where I think Shane is like, this here.
I don't know.
All right, now I got two more.
But
ahead,
you're
John.
dealing with so you have a couple that come in and okay, somebody's not being fulfilled properly or whatever, but this is a couple that came to you for help. They've been like, so the woman, to put it your way, like just not getting fucked the right way, but she's been fucking the same guy for 15 years. So like, is she going to be like, yeah, okay, this guy ain't getting it done and I need to get it done. And so I'm going to go get it done.
Well, conveniently, if they're in my space and we're having that conversation, they may have the resources that they're looking for right in front of them. And
all right,
that's a thing where it's like, just because we keep kind of investigating this premise, if there's a couple there and they really want to do the work, I'm happy to work with both of them together. Maybe I'll bring in another practitioner if it feels too complex, or it would be more suitable for a woman to work with a woman, can feel it out. It's also totally fine to just be singularly working with one person, even if it is the issues of the couple that I can potentially move a lot more with just the man. Like there's so much worth looking at around intent. We spend a lot of time in the program looking at like, why, like, why do you want to have sex? Like, what are we even here for? Like, what is your interest in this subject actually about?
Because if it sucks, why would you want to do it?
Right? Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of intention that can move a lot of energy, and then there's some intentions that are just like very superficial and selfish, and they don't really matter, right? Like somebody's just like, like, I like how my dick feels, so like that's why I'm here. Is like, that's cool, bro. Like I do too. And if we look at things that maybe have more meaning to us and to the people that we love and to the world as a whole, we probably have a lot more juice and fire and power to work with as people and as men. So we spend some time in the program really looking at like, what are you doing? Like, what is the intention for you being here? And what are you seeking to really do with your sexual life and with your life in general? And, there's a balance between not getting too heavy or like conceptual or philosophical with just, again, like if solely the intention that I'm approaching here is how do you have better sex? It really is important that we look at intention at least a little bit. So
when you say the program, are you talking about a set program or are you talking about every, okay. So what is the program?
So I iterate on it all the time. I feel like I'm just in constant kind of creative exploration around how this work wants to come through. But the next program, it'll start in a couple weeks or whatever. I don't remember the exact date right now. I think it's like November 12th or something. And it's a 11 session program over 6 weeks.
All right.
So we meet in person for 3 hours twice a week. And there's a little bit of homework in between. Some of it is just like personal practice, kind of like breath work, simple movement. Some of it is conversations to have with your partner or whatever. So there's a whole curriculum. The amount of material in the curriculum would take a whole year to cover probably. So it really is like a emergent thing based on a group of people, and the containers are small. I do it with 12 men capped per round. So it's a small group. I'm able to really keep track of what's here for everybody and what people's intentions are. And the material that we go through is really to meet the needs of the individuals that are in the group. And there's plenty of time for Q&A and for like hot seat coaching for folks to have personal support from me.
Okay.
That's
when you say we meet in person, but it's online. So when you say we're actually doing a meeting versus like homework
this particular program. Yeah, it's on Zoom.
I got it. Yeah. Interesting. How long is a session?
3 hours.
3 hours.
Yeah.
11 times 30
marathon sessions, but a lot of it is interactive. Like it's not lecture based primarily. Like there's a bit of that, but a lot of it is like people are in breakouts. We put them in pairs. You're doing exercises with a partner
in those 3 hours.
Yeah, in those 3 hours. Yeah.
Wow. So, interesting. Okay.
Put a lot of love into the program for sure. It's a great program.
I got a couple I want to throw out there before we wrap up.
Please.
I got one more before we wrap up.
Well, actually, I got 3, but they should be short.
All right.
Okay, so let's say somebody's had this problem before in a relationship, and that relationship ended, and they decided, okay, I'm going to work on me.
Yeah.
So that this doesn't happen in the next one, right?
Yes.
So they want to grow themselves.
Yes.
With your program, how does one, like, if they don't have a partner, is there any part of this that would be translatable to self pleasure?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of it, and even beyond self pleasure, a lot of it is just like personal experience, like the way that we are in our bodies, the way that we are experiencing consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in a way, it's like it's fucking weird to frame it like this, but like fundamentally, what my work is about is consciousness research. It's like embodiment and consciousness research. And for me personally, one of the most compelling, fun, interesting things to do with consciousness and embodiment is sex. So it's and it's way more compelling. You know, like people wouldn't sign up for like a consciousness research program so much, but they would for this sex outcome, because it's way more compelling to be like, wow, if I do this, I'm going to have a phenomenal sex life. I'm in. Rather than like, if I do this, I'm going to have some kind of like abstractly better experience or something.
Okay, so you actually answered one of the other questions I was going to ask, because I was kind of curious if anybody has ever come to you to say, man, I just want to be like Coxman, like
we literally
like gigolo fucking supreme, like
start a new business. And I'm doing some research.
I could only imagine that if you had this superpower to, that and you were single, then you would be pretty fucking popular, I would assume. With the the opposite sex.
Yeah, it's a great point, Shane. So I do let's see how we deal with this when the business continues to scale here. I typically do an interview process that is in part vetting for me to just kind of suss out whether or not this person is somebody that I want in this space.
Okay.
Because again, like I'm not trying to give power tools to teenagers. That's
certainly that's a good analogy. Yeah.
But at the same time, like I do think that there are ways in which, like, I don't assume or judge that just because guys are in like a Playboy phase that they are somehow like they don't deserve to get access to resources and be a part of our communities. And like I do think that there's an edge there where it's like, okay, are we somehow like enabling or empowering something that's like unhealthy and harmful?
Right. That makes sense.
This is just like a young buck who's just like living his life. He's 28 years old. He just like wants to pimp it for a while before he settles down. Is like, cool, man. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And I think that sometimes to get it out of your system by having more juice and more skill, like I've spent a lot of time in the pickup artist community and, studied cold approach pickup and even teach dating advice as a part of the program, because a lot of people don't even know how to talk to women. So it's important, if I really want like top to bottom to be able to help, that the dating thing is important. So I would say that like if somebody were to approach me and it felt to me like that was where they were at and that's where they wanted to keep hanging out for a while, I would want to just get really clear with them about like, is this the right vibe? Is this something that I feel like this person is able to manage the power that they will be developing in a way that is not causing harm, like is not like a values mismatch for me personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. That's good. It's not just go grab everything and anything. I mean, it's good that you have, a moral compass that you have to, it's got to be a good fit for you too. Not just to be a client.
Yeah, I mean,
I got one more. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's just it's easy to fill 12-person programs. It's not, that's not the way that we're aiming to make money is like it's a much bigger plan.
Right.
This work at scale will create real revenue generation, but these programs where I'm really working with people one-on-one, it's simple.
Scaling it,
relatively low.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I got one more, and then John, you can have the last question.
Please. Yeah.
All right. Mm-hmm.
How do you overcome just physical lack? I mean, obviously there are all kinds of sizes, and women need different things, and if you just are not physically large enough, or sometimes maybe too large, or like, how do you take these techniques and still create a successful sexual relationship between a man and a woman where maybe the equipment is not quite up to par.
Yeah.
I mean, crudely, I mean, if he's got a little one, what do you do with it? And if it's in the opposite, sometimes maybe that's too much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an important question. And I think in a way I can just assume that you're like speaking for the collective, right? Like there's a lot of,
oh, it's a friend. It's a friend. No, I'm asking. I'm sorry. I had to. No, but seriously.
Seriously.
Oh shit. Yeah. Seriously. I mean, I am kind of curious because I mean, if the physical attributes are just not there, like, I mean, how are you able to teach a man to give that same pleasure to his spouse?
Yeah.
Even if there's some lacking in that department.
It's a brilliant question, and this may kind of bend your mind a little bit here, but bear with me. I think we'll find our way. So this term energy is so fucking vague that when people use it, I'm often like, okay, can you use language that's less abstract so people actually know what you're talking about? And I'm going to do that thing where I use the word energy that's extremely ambiguous and vague for the sake of just operating within a language that works. Haven't found anything better so far. It seems like if we are in an exploration, like a sexual exploration that's about the energetics of the sexual exchange, rather than the physical stimulation being what's driving the sexual exploration, we're in a different game. Because like most people think that the way that you get good at sex is you do a lot of physical stimulation to her vagina. That's what that is. Right. Like that's, and there's some stuff that like really gets into the psychology of it, of like, women want to be dominated and they want somebody who's really, empowered and decisive and strong and willing to embrace their darkness and all that kind of more psychological stuff. And that's all good. That stuff's important. But I think that the thing that I really want to highlight here is that when we're looking at how do we increase physical stimulation, we're already having the wrong conversation.
Got you.
So like this thing of like the potency, the energetic potency of a man, I think is way more important than the size of his dick. And I know some women who I would consider to be very serious practitioners that would fully validate that, like, a big cock that's not energetically integrated into the man's power is like maybe fun and interesting in a certain way, but like compared to a man who just has like an average or below average dick who has just so much fucking power and energetic integration in the way that he makes love to her is a way more satisfying and fulfilling and meaningful experience.
Man, that's pretty fascinating.
Right? So like we have this section in the program that says, have you been using your penis as a penis or as a dildo that's connected to your body?
I thought that was
pretty fucking good.
I thought that was just the old saying of not the size or what is it, man? Not the size,
motion of the ocean, or
the motion of the ocean. Yeah, that's like another way. Another way to answer that question would be to say,
totally, yeah. So I mean, there's something interesting where it's like you can truly have sex with a woman where you're literally not moving your body at all, or don't even have your dick inside of her, and take her on a journey that she's never been on before, where she will experience more pleasure and more connection than she ever has. Like, for sure, that is a thing that is available to us.
I would imagine that she would have to be open to that. I mean, like, you can't just like if you had these skills and you just met a lady at the bar and it worked out where you're gonna go, like, you can't just pull that shit out without her being in the loop, right?
Yeah. So we're getting into weird territory here, Shane, because I would say that can even actually be psychologically, psychically, and energetically destabilizing. Like you can like really fucking crack somebody's psyche open by bringing them into those kinds of experiences when they're not really able to integrate them into the rest of their life and to their being.
I would agree with that. I mean,
I do too. I'm just curious, like
a little bit back to the power tool thing
and psychologically.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of layers there, but what I would say in short is like this word that you use, open, is really important, because if she's not open to it, we can take that as several different meanings. Like one is like on, like, is she open-minded? Is she willing to try stuff she's never done before or whatever? Like, that's obviously such an important thing. Another thing is like, is her body open? Like one of the biggest things that gets in the way of people being able to explore these more expanded or deeper sexual things is that they're not breathing, that they don't know how to breathe properly, and their body is habituated to a kind of breathing that does not work well for these kinds of things that we're describing before, of like orgasmic conductivity. Like the body can actually conduct more energy where we have access to different kinds of orgasm and interpersonal experience. So that's huge. And like,
I can see why the course is 3-hour sessions. I mean, we're an hour and a half, and
3 hours. Yeah.
Dude, I could do 7 courses of questions just out of curiosity. I mean, I think what you do is fucking fascinating, man.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm happy to have more chats with you guys. I do want to say one more thing in case somebody's listening that could use this, or even for you guys, that something else that's really important is that the body is habituated to breathing in a way that is not functional for healthy regulating physiology. So another way that we could say this is like, the way that people learned to breathe is based on a fight or flight response in the body, and the way that the musculature in our abdomen and in our diaphragm is patterned, and the way that the neurology is patterned to use all of that tissue, is oriented towards fear-based breathing activities. That they're physiologically, there's 3 different kinds of breathing. As far as I know, this is what the latest science has said, is that there's rest and digest breathing, there's aerobic activity breathing, and there's fear response breathing, when you need to mobilize to protect yourself or the people that you care about. And most people, from what I have seen and being with a lot of bodies, they are doing the fight or flight based breathing literally all the time. Literally all the time. Their bellies are tight, their diaphragms are patterned in an uneven way, they breathe into their chest. So even when you tell somebody to take a deep breath, their belly is tight and they're breathing into their chest. And in a way, it might actually be communicating to the brain that I'm not safe and I need to be ready to run. So it's like,
shit.
And like, you can see this in people's eyes, you can see it in their posture, you can see it in the way that they are, is like, we don't realize that what we are experiencing is at least a low-level state of fear as the baseline of experience. And we think that that's just how we are. And we think that we are anxious or we're insecure, but you're actually just a scared animal, and your biology will not allow you to have an experience of safety and self-trust and empowerment, because it's based in biology. And this is where I think that so many people get it wrong, where it's like the psyche and the psychology thing and the mindset stuff is like, there are paths where you can work with that, but I think a great deal of it is just fully missing the point that the reason why you're having all of these unpleasant experiences is because of biology. And it doesn't fucking mean anything. It's just because you're inside of a mammal body that is in a state of fear, and the way that we have learned to adapt and being in that all the time is to have all of this kind of neurotic behavior and psychological tendencies, and it's not personal, it's not about the person, it doesn't mean anything, it's simply biology in a fear state that correlates with all of this kind of psychological neuroses. So a big part of the work is like, how do you get a body to experience physiological safety in connection with another body? Because that is already a huge change in quality of life, in the resource base that is available for us to just like feel better and to be able to digest hard shit and just simple day-to-day living, is that we can experience the built-in resource that we have as these large mammals that are designed to be in groups, to co-regulate, to experience safety and physical intimacy with our brothers and sisters and lovers in our body, in our physical body.
So I imagine that's how you start, with breathing, huh?
Yeah.
Breath work.
It's huge. Yeah. Because I also, this is kind of getting into the woo, the industrial grade woo here, is the there's a part where we're working with transmission, and until somebody's body is open, it's very difficult for me to help them get the information that is available from being around me in their system. They can't feel it. Their system is not receptive to it. They're just looping an old information, and their system can't update. They're not able to get into a range in their nervous system where deep learning is possible, because they're in cognition. Their whole entire experience is cognition, and their body is a brain taxi, and that's it. That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
So this sense of like being embodied and having a different experience with psychological cognitive phenomenon and being relational is how the work happens. It's a deep thing, you know, and it's wild to realize that it does work over Zoom. I've spent thousands and thousands of hours with people on Zoom doing body-based transmission and co-regulation, and
I can't see why it wouldn't work. Actually, I mean, if you,
Whew.
So what?
Wow.
How can people find? I'll ask my question offline. It's completely unrelated. How can people find you and see like when's your next program? How can they contact you? All that. Throw it out there.
My name is Rob Kancler, Kancler. You can find me on all the socials at my name. If you go to IHateNotHavingGreatSexAllTheTime.com, you can find
Wow. All right.
Direct domain match.
You can find some information there. So
that's fucking great.
All right. Awesome.
And we can take it from there. If you are compelled to reach out, feel free. We're real friendly. And,
awesome. I'll put all that in the descriptions and everything, of course, and put some links in there for you as well. So well, thank you so much. We could go. It's another one of those where we could keep going. You know, hit the whole 3 hours. We have session. We could do 11 sessions. 3 hours a pop on the podcast. Nice. Put them all on YouTube. So
thanks so much, guys. Really do appreciate this. And
it was awesome. I'm gonna hit stop real quick, and we'll be
keep
set.
Your computer open. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Butt Fixer Podcast. Stay tuned for more guests, more stories, and more butt fixes. Make sure you click like, subscribe, and follow at all of the places where you stream podcasts.